Yielding meditation is a movement practice that involves letting go and surrendering to the present moment. It's a form of reconnection with oneself and the world around us. It's estimated that in the United States, meditation is becoming a more popular practice, with more children and adults practicing it. In 2022, according to the National Centers for Complementary and Integrative Health, 17.3% of the U.S. adult population practice meditation, which is double the amount recorded back in 2002. Meditation was also the most popular complementary health practice in 2022, outweighing yoga or any other alternative health practice. For more than 36 years, my friend Jeff Patterson has been harnessing inner strength, paving a path as the yielding warrior on a path to wellness and potential. He understands how to build a personalized practice and what sets him apart from other meditation practitioners is his unique approach, known as the Yielding Warrior Method. He teaches the 5 basic regulations which are fundamental to any meditative practice. He goes beyond the traditional methods by incorporating ritual, active, and philosophical techniques to help individuals build a personalized, involved meditating program. He's got a passion for sports and writing, which is reflected in his best-selling books, including one of his latest, entitled The Yielding Warrior. During his nearly 3.5 decades of experience, Patterson says that there's a real need and fiber for the authentic nature of forming meaningful connections and authentic relationships. He is on a mission to help people understand the power of meditation and martial arts and how Patterson's unique program and method stands apart. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to learn how you help people through their meditation journey, my friend. Great to see you, and thanks so very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, sir.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, I wanted to start our conversation by talking about inner strength and diving into what you call the yielding warrior, my friend, and the secret path to wellness and potential, my friend. So I'm wondering if we can start there and what makes that your passion and your purpose, my friend.
So yielding has always been something I've been very passionate about. It's one of the concepts in the meditative and martial arts that's been used for generations. And there's 3 different branches of yielding, if you will. There's physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. And physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. So now I can respond with less effort. So I'm not trying to butt heads and see if I'm bigger and stronger than you. Now, in order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. And while it may take a lifetime to really master these skills, from day one, by integrating a meditation practice into your life, you start to recognize these things and be more in tune and more balanced within yourself. And now, once you start recognizing these things within yourself, you also start seeing them more clearly in other people. And this is where we move into what I call mental yielding. And so, say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you, but I pick up on it right from the beginning. It's a lot easier at this point to adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so, learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. One, we're being more considerate, which is something that we could all do more of. And two, it allows us to be strategic in our interactions so we can guide the conversation to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. And this is great for our relationships, for business, for sales, for negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can apply this idea. Then, lastly, we have what I call emotional yielding, and this is very much like mental yielding, but with our own interpersonal conflicts. So you think about oftentimes something will happen and we'll respond and we'll go down this path and we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding, if we could have taken a step back and been a little more present and aware of what was going on and not let our emotions get involved, a lot of times we could make a different decision that saves us a lot of heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this idea of yielding now for over 30 years. I've been running my academy here. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, yielding makes a lot of sense to me. In fact, I do yielding all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time. However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years. I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things about ourselves and in other people that I truly believe that most people will go through life and never have any clue of unless they adopt some kind of practice like this into their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, from a personal standpoint, which one of those three branches of yielding do you most identify with personally, my friend?
I really don't have a one that I've been or identify more with. I think that all of them are part of the way that you need to adapt to live your life. Physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding are things that we can use every day. And being an athlete myself, I have to use physical yielding all the time. But the mental and emotional yielding, that's happening on a daily basis as well. So I resonate with all three areas of it.
Absolutely, my friend. And you also say it's important for us to get in context with our human connection, my friend, and what role it plays in the work that you do today, my friend, in regards to self improvement and alternative health, my friend. So tell me about the role that human connection plays in the work that you do, in the work that you do today, my friend.
Sure. So, I've been teaching for 30 years, and, you know, it's always rewarding to be able to help people and see their transformation. And through the years, I've had over 26,000 students come through the academy. And I've literally heard hundreds of stories of how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And that's what's made me so passionate about trying to get out there and spread the word of this practice and just try to help as many people as I can.
Yeah, and I know, my friend, that it's based on basic principles that are fundamental to any meditative practice, my friend. And I know that you say you go beyond the methods of incorporating rituals and active physiological techniques, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the five principles and the academy itself. But my friend, what do people need to know?
Sure. So within the five regulations, these are five fundamental basic principles that are the heart of any meditation practice, whether you're doing Tai Chi or Qigong or sitting meditation, standing meditation, or yoga practices, whatever it is, you're cultivating these five pillars, if you will, and they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what those mean. So, regulating the body, which is usually where we begin because it's the one that you'll see the most immediate results from, it basic understanding of it is regulating your skeletal alignment and your muscular tension in the body. A little bit beyond that is maintaining some sense of muscular structure in the body and flexibility, eating a healthy diet to keep our energy levels up, making sure that we're getting enough sleep so we can replenish the body. All of this is coming from that lack of posture and movement. And then think about another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states we're in 100% control of all day, every day. And so learning how to regulate the body is a very important part. The second pillar is regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is a very deep topic, and it's something that you'll study for the rest of your life if you take on a meditation practice. And basically the idea is learning how to use the breath to regulate our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Oftentimes people refer to qigong as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies, and with these strategies we can use them to get different outcomes. So because there's so many different practices, we kind of broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of meditation practices that help us turn that energy inward. And an example of a yin practice or yin breath would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing our conscious mind into our subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so, if we want to emulate this style of energetic expression in our meditative practices, we can lengthen the inhale, put soft retentions at the end of the inhale, and shorter exhales. And this will help us bring that energy inward, which is great for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety, with panic attacks, with boosting our creativity. I mean, there's so many different benefits that come from this side of the practice. Then there's the yang side of the practice, which is more aggressive, and it's using our breath to let that energy expand. And an example of this would be if you ever had to pick up something heavy or push your car, your natural instinct is to exhale, maybe put tension in the breath, make the breath audible, and this helps generate energy and send it outwards. Now, when we can understand how to use this breath strategically, we can use it to regulate our physical, mental, and emotional well being. Everybody, we all go through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people are like more like a roller coaster, others may be a little more balanced. But when you start understanding how to regulate these imbalances with the breath, we can now, if you're that roller coaster person, you can kind of take those peaks and valleys down a little bit and find a little bit more balance in your stability. Then the next regulation is regulating the mind. And regulating the mind, as with the breath, is a lifelong journey. One of the most common things I'll hear people tell me when they come to a meditation practice is, I've tried meditation before, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet my mind. Well, somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful with meditation, you have to reach this state of nirvana and this blissful place where nothing bothers you. Well, they couldn't be further from the truth. You know, I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world many times and train with some amazing meditation practitioners, and I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We're all human. We all face these issues when we come to our meditation practice. The trick is when we recognize these imbalances, is to notice them before they gain too much momentum, and then use our posture and our breath and our alignment to bring ourselves back to center. And by doing this, now say you meditate for 20 minutes and you get distracted 50 times, you now just got 50 repetitions of being out of balance and coming back to focus. And if you do this every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this resiliency and this ability to get through almost any distraction that comes your way. There's this story that I really enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm, and they come up to this mud puddle. It's a big puddle. It's covering up the whole road. They can't get to the other side without walking through it. And on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl standing there in a white dress. The older monk, he yells across the puddle because he sees her crying, and he says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle, picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles down the road, and finally the younger monk is just furious and he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down at him and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in our lives do we have to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we realize that we need to let these things go? And so regulating the mind is a very important part of the training. The fourth pillar is regulating the energy. And this is a very deep topic and something that we could talk for hours about. But just to break it down and give you an idea of it, once you've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, you now have the tools to regulate the energy in the body and lead it inward, extend it outward, circulate it through the body to get different outcomes. And then the fifth and final pillar is regulating the spirit. And this is a very profound idea and something that meditation practitioners and qigong masters and monks will spend their entire life's journey searching for that ultimate stage of enlightenment. So once you understand these basic five fundamental pillars, you can see how easily these things can affect everything you do in life. And that's one of the reasons why meditation is so powerful, is that it can influence everything we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, as you mentioned, you've been teaching this practice for over 36 years, my friend. And I'm curious, during that time, my friend, what do you think you've learned most about the resilience of people? And what do you consider your greatest contribution to the field, my friend, over that span of time?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, I've always had fun here at the academy. We have external arts, which is like the boxing, the Muay Thai, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Eskrima program. And I've always had fun training somebody when they come in here and they want to compete and then they go out and do well and helping them do that. But one of the things that's special about the meditative arts is you get people that are coming in here that are dealing with stress disorders or fighting through an illness or having these major transformations by integrating these practices. And I have literally heard hundreds of stories through the years about how these meditative practice has positively influenced people's lives. And I think that's my greatest contribution is being able to help these people. You know, if somebody comes in and they get panic attacks 4 or 5 times a week and they feel uncomfortable going out of the house because they have these panic attacks, and through this practice, they learn how to let those go and to be more comfortable in their own skin and feel comfortable when they're walking around the grocery store. You know, this is really rewarding to me and it can positively change people's lives. And so that's why I'm so passionate about trying to get this word out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, as a former sports reporter and communications graduate, my friend, I'm always passionate to talk about writing, and I know it's one of your passions as well, my friend. And it comes across in the books that you've written, including your latest, my friend, entitled The Yielding Warrior. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about your latest book and your passion for writing, my friend. Where does that originate from?
You know, I think that my passion for writing has mostly been inspired by integrating the meditative arts into my life. Because as a younger person, I never really had the desire to write, but in practicing the meditative arts, it's really helped bring out my creativity, you know. And since I started practicing the meditative arts, I've picked up writing, I've picked up music. There's been a number of things that have kind of really helped me kind of just be more in tune in life. And that's all come from the meditative practice. My writing practice. You know, I try to write a little bit every day. It's almost something that's soothing to me. It's something I really enjoy. We talked a little bit about the idea of yielding, which is what my last book focuses on. Right now, I'm working on a new book called The Yielding Athlete that is teaching performers and athletes how to utilize the meditative arts to really improve their performance because, you know, so many professional athletes these days and performers are turning to the meditative arts to help improve their performance. You know, and by doing this and integrating ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices, and gaining more control over their thoughts and opening up their peripheral vision mentally and seeing things strategically from different angles, the meditative arts can really, really help people perform at a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, I'm also curious to ask you about the concept of personal commitment because, you know, this practice requires a certain level of, you know, personal commitment and discipline. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on your definition of what discipline means and how you use it to inspire the people you work with. What are your thoughts there?
So that leads me to think of a story that I heard a long time ago that I really enjoy because it's so closely connected to the meditative arts. And it's about this stonecutter in ancient China who was very well known. He had created these beautiful sculptures of animals and scenery and because he was so well known, many apprentices would come to study with him and learn the trade from him and then go back to wherever they were from. They'd stay with him for a few years at a time. Well, every morning, the stonecutter would go down by the river and meditate. And one day, after his meditation session, He was walking along the river and he had this very clear, profound vision of a 6 foot tall, mystical Chinese dragon made out of jade. And he was so taken by this vision and saw it with such detail that he decided that this was going to be his next project. Now, you can imagine trying to find a piece of jade this size might be a little bit difficult. So he spent the next few months traveling all around the area looking for the perfect piece of jade to create this sculpture. He finally found this stone. He brought it back to his shop, and before he began working on it, he studied the rock for days. He would walk around the stone and try to envision how the dragon would come out of the rock and just look at every little crevice and the way that the rock was formed and how it was twisted and put together. And so he finally got an idea of how to best approach this. And when he began to work with his chisel and the hammer, he found one place on the stone, placed his chisel very carefully, and started tapping at it with his hammer. And he never moved the chisel. He kept tapping the same spot over and over again, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. A few days went by and nothing changed. He kept tapping on the same spot. A few more days went by, and his apprentices started second guessing and like wondering if he was doing the right thing, wondering why he kept hitting that spot if nothing was happening. A few more days went by and thousands more strikes to the same spot. And finally, this piece of rock, about 3 feet, a 3 foot section of the rock, broke off on the backside of it, and it made this beautiful, smooth, curved line. And one of his apprentices said, "How did you know that strike was going to break the stone?" And he said, "It wasn't that strike that broke the stone. It was the thousands of strikes before it." And the apprentice got a little bit of discouraged look on his face and he said, "But there was no sign of anything happening. There was no cracks. Why keep hitting that same spot if you didn't see any change?" And the stonecutter, he got down on his knees and he placed his hand over the smooth edge that he just created. And he said, "Each strike was not wasted. The stone was changing beneath the surface. And even if we couldn't see the change, the consistency and the repetition shaped not only the stone, but the one who wields the hammer." And the thing that I love about this story is that it's so closely intertwined with the meditative arts, and that as we go to master the meditative arts and to reach a higher level of sensitivity and feeling within our practice, oftentimes we're practicing these movements and this breath work and studying these philosophical concepts, and we don't see anything happening with the naked eye. And we've got to understand that we're strengthening our foundation beneath the surface. And so when you take on a meditative practice, you really have to understand that there's going to be times where you don't see anything happening, and you're going to have to work through these times and understand that consistency and the discipline and integrity and perseverance is so important to maintain as we're going through this practice. And as being a teacher for so many years, one of the things that I've come up against so often is trying to get to students to believe in this idea of consistency and stay true to their practice so they can really reap all the benefits of what they're doing. And, one of the things that I've found most beneficial is to get them to spend a little bit of time thinking about why they've been drawn to the practice. Do they want to stay healthy into their later years to watch their grandkids grow up? Or maybe they are looking to deal with a stress disorder, or they want to improve their athletic performance. Whatever that surface level why is, and then take it a little bit beyond that and think about, if they accomplish that goal and they take on this practice, what are 10 or 20 things that will positively change in their life by integrating this practice into their life? And then I have them flip the coin and think, if they don't do this, what are 10 or 20 negative things that will happen that will come from them not accomplishing this? And if they spend some heartfelt time really considering this, what's going to happen is it's going to provide them with fuel to stay consistent, which is something that we all need because there's going to be times where you wake up in the morning and your alarm's going to go off and it's time to get up and go do your practice and you're going to be tired and think, I'll just do it tomorrow. Today I don't really feel like it. But if you have a good purpose, you're going to start looking forward to the practice and not think of it as a chore that you have to do every day. And this is where you're really going to start reaping the benefits of a meditation practice. The other thing that I always tell new people to consider is that meditation is a very deep journey and something that you'll study for the rest of your life. And so it's so important to have somebody help point you in the right direction. You need to find a guide. If you think that you're going to go out there and be self-taught and navigate the waters of the millions of videos out there on YouTube and all of these different apps, you're never going to get deeper than the surface on this practice. And our lives are short. We're not around very long. Your time is valuable. Having somebody help point you in the right direction can save you years. I've literally seen people come in here to the academy that have been self-taught and they've been studying diligently for 15, sometimes 20 years, and their level of understanding in the meditative arts isn't much more than somebody who's been training for 6 or 12 months with a guide. And so find yourself somebody that you can follow and help. Understand the importance of why you're being drawn to the practice and realize that it's through this consistent effort that changes all of the foundation beneath the surface. So if you do those three things, you'll see value in the practice and it'll be one of the best things you've ever done for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, I'm curious to ask you personally, how do you cultivate inner motivation for yourself personally? And how do you personally drive yourself to challenge the status quo of what's possible, my friend? Friend, how do you define inner motivation?
You know, for myself, it's no different than the way that I teach others. And I've got a solid why that I revisit every 6 to 12 months. And sometimes it evolves, and sometimes it changes, and sometimes it doesn't. But I stay very clear on what that message is for me and what it means to me to do this practice. And because of that, it gives me the energy to stay consistent. I haven't missed a day of my meditation practice in over 5 years since I had my hip surgery. And even when I was lying in bed with my hip surgery, I was doing breath work and practicing different philosophical sayings to work on that element of the practice. So it's just part of who I am at this point, and I just never miss.
Yeah, and we talk about promoting the concept of holistic health. It's evolved over the years, and it means many things to many different people. And I know that it's something that's near and dear to your heart, my friend. So, how do you think teaching holistic health and meditation has evolved over the years, and what has stayed sort of the standard bearer of the practice? And what are your thoughts there, my friend, on how we can achieve balance between the two?
Well, if you go back 30 years, there was not near as much of the population was open to the meditative arts. It was almost like it was some mystical new age thing that didn't have any validity, or nobody believed that it would do anything for you. And now, there has been so much scientific evidence to show that the meditative arts is valid and it positively influences people's lives, that it's a lot easier these days to convince people and show them how practical and how efficient this can be in helping them with certain things. That only takes 5 minutes of a Google search to go out there and you'll see 1,000 articles on how the meditative arts positively influences people's lives. And so it's a lot easier than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to dive very quickly in the emotional aspect of self reflection and sort of the value that you think people should place on self reflection, and how does that affect the work that you do today, my friend?
So you can think about when we talked about emotional yielding, if you have a distraction in your mind and it takes you 2 miles to get down the road before you deal with it, it's going to be a lot harder to let it go because you've spent so much time thinking about this negative momentum, and it's so much easier if you have this awareness through a meditation practice where you recognize these first signs of imbalance. And sometimes they come up in your physiology, sometimes it's in your thoughts, sometimes it's in kind of just how you feel. And when you can recognize and you've built up this sensitivity and this awareness through your practice, it's a lot easier to adjust and recover and find that center again when you don't spend too much time going down these negative paths. And so with a meditation practice, this is one of the strong benefits of it, is that it just makes us more in tune. We're more connected to how we feel and how we think. And but in doing this, it allows us to be strategic in how we let the energy come out, whether it's through our movements, our tone of voice, or even our thoughts internally.
Yeah, and Jeff, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the concept of goal setting and how we can use goal setting as a form of discipline in this work and in life, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
It's very important to have goals. And I think that before you make any goals, you could go back to the exercise we already talked about on discovering what your true reason is, what your why is, and think about how by accomplishing that, it's going to change your life. And by putting some heartfelt time into that, now when you set your goals, there's fuel behind it. You have some reasons to follow through with that. And I think it's important to have, short-term goals that you can accomplish every day and really spend time celebrating the success of you accomplishing the little goals. And all of those little goals should feed into your long term and your bigger vision goals. And in doing that and adapting that into your life, you can really accomplish more than most people imagine that they ever will.
Yeah, and Jeff, I've got two questions left for you. And the first is I wanted to circle back on how meditation really can affect positively every aspect of our lives. Because, as you know, if you find your inner center, you're at a more calmer state and you can execute the vision that you have for your life. So tell me how this practice, in a nutshell, really affects every aspect of our daily lives and living a healthier and happier one. My friend, what are your thoughts there?
Well, it helps build the awareness in your physiology, in your mental thoughts, and in your emotions. And when you can be in control of those three things and understand how to regulate and let the positive side of the energy come out in those three areas, it can change everything you do.
Yeah, and finally, Jeff, I'm curious, when you look at your life and your legacy and your work in this space, I'm curious, how do you want your legacy to be defined both personally and professionally? What are your thoughts there?
I want to be remembered as somebody that went out there and helped as many people as I could, and that's why I'm so passionate about teaching the meditative arts because I have seen thousands of lives transformed through the practice. And I just want to get this message out there and help as many people as I can.
Absolutely, my friend. And finally, tell me, my friend, if people want to get involved with you and the academy, what's the most efficient way they can do that?
So they could go to my website, theyieldingwarrior.com. Right now, I've got a 2-week trial up there. If you're interested in learning how to build an evolving life practice with the meditative arts, you can try it out for a couple weeks and see how that works for you. And also, if you like kind of some of the philosophy we're talking about, you can check out my most recent book. It's available on Amazon. Also, if you go through the website at theyieldingwarrior.com/book, you could get a free copy of the book, just pay for shipping and handling.
Well, fabulous, my friend. I really respect the work that you're doing in the field of alternative health and meditation, and I was privileged to tap into your over 3 decades of experience, my friend. I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me and for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, sir. It's been a great pleasure.
Fantastic, Jeff. That was terrific, my friend. I hope you enjoyed the experience.
Yes, it's been great chatting with you. I appreciate your time.